So, the most recent chapter for My Hero Academia has been out for a hot minute, so let's talk about it because there's a lot that we need to talk about when it comes to this chapter, and it's going to be a girthy one. So, let's dive right into it. But first, right after this. Hey guys, how's it going? It is your boy, Manga Man Drew, and I am here to do my manga review for My Hero Academia manga chapter 414. And it has been a while, unfortunately, because of the break that we had, as well as the spoilers coming out significantly later, and that eventually affecting when the chapter itself comes out. But that's something that I explained in my previous video, but just as a summation, people got caught doing something illegal, and now translations and chapters are going to be coming out later. But that's besides the point. The point that I really want to get to is what's going on in this chapter, because what we're getting in this chapter is a continuation, once again, of the fight between Deku and Tomura, with some massive stuff happening in this chapter involving the vestiges, involving a new way to actually use the search quirk to Deku's advantage, as well as just getting to see why Deku is a main character known for strategy and critical thinking, because we get a lot of that in this chapter. So let's just dive right into it and really go into what this chapter is going to do for the character of Deku moving forward and what it means to actually defeat Tomura Shigaraki. And to start off, this chapter actually starts off with like a brief review of what's been happening so far, what happened within the past few chapters, most likely because Horikoshi or even the editors have realized that a lot has happened in just a few chapters, so we get like a big box to summarize everything that has happened so far. And ignoring how much has changed within this part of the video, the title of the chapter is called Overlay, and this ties heavily into what is going to be going on in this chapter. And take a wild guess on what that is going to be. I'll let you guess right now and reveal it towards the end of this video, if I remember to do so. Alright? You made your guesses? Alright, let's go more into the review proper. And as we get this, we do get to see just an amazing aesthetic look for Deku in this moment, as we get confirmation that what Deku is using in this moment is the black whips to pretty much move his body from the inside out. And that this is a shocking way of using the quirk that even Banjo and In are mesmerized by how Deku is able to use the quirk. But then you just have Kudo chiming in of like, yeah, no, this makes sense, because when it comes to someone who knows all about quirks, this kid knows it. And this just ties into why Deku is best suited for One For All and all of these quirks, is because he himself hasn't just been studying on how to be a hero, but has detailed understanding of how to use quirks, even though he didn't have one, because he spent most of his life just studying how quirks work. And by doing so, allows him to use quirks in ways that someone who's had a quirk their entire life may not be able to utilize the quirks as effectively as Deku can, just due to how much he studied them. And we get to see a lot of cool strategies in this chapter, and the main goal that Deku has in this chapter ties into something that we learned earlier on when it comes to One For All. How he can only willingly transfer it over, but by doing so, the other person doesn't need to have consent. And we get sort of this refresher of how it was done, tying back to how All Might was explaining it, of forcing chocolates onto someone else. And pretty much Deku plans on doing this by using a singular drop of blood. And this is very important because this is actually most likely referencing or heavily inspired by what happened at the end of the second movie, which, spoilers for the second movie, Deku gives One For All to Bakugo by transferring One For All through the blood in a cut in Bakugo's body. And this is kind of what Deku is thinking that he's going to do. Transfer One For All to Tomura and eventually start breaking through the mental fortitudes and like the lead core inside of him to potentially save him. And how he does it is amazing, because he's able to do it in a way that is very much unique to Deku. Pure and utter strategy. When he is weaker and slower than his opponent, he relies on his brain to get the upper hand, and by doing so, he actually achieved the goal of transferring part of One For All, specifically Gear Shift, into Tomura. And he does so in a very unique and interesting way, and even to a point where even Tomura himself just recognizes how much of a strategic just intellect Deku is. And we get a little bit of confirmation in the last chapter that Deku actually didn't cut off Tomura's arm, he actually cut it off himself because he knew that Deku had a plan. And that he comes to a realization that the way that Deku thinks is not normal, so he should be more wary of it. But what is very interesting about this scene is that as he's thinking about it, he's scratching himself, which is something that is very reminiscent of what Tenko did when he was younger. And how the reason why this is probably brought up is to show just what it means for Tomura to actually be himself, and really showing us that the Tomura that he is right now is not as removed from Tenko as he wants to believe, because he still has those tics that he had as a kid. But even then, we get a lot of cool paneling to really show how Deku is able to outmaneuver and outthink Tomura in this moment, as we get to see another confirmation that when Deku hit the ground a few chapters earlier, he was able to actually bury the Black Whips into the ground and send up a chunk of dirt to distract Tomura and allow him to actually not be able to decay the ground and potentially cause Mount Fuji to erupt. And how this is calling back to the UA Fortress and how it was able to do that against Tomura. And then we get another callback to the Lady Nagant fight, which is how Deku was able to use Gran Torino's cape to actually convince Tomura that he is right behind him, but also utilizes something even more interesting and unexpected, the Search quirk. Because we do know that Search is inside of Tomura in this moment, that All For One stole from Ragdoll long ago in Act 1 of My Hero Academia. But what is very interesting is the callback to how Search actually works, and that it works by actually laying your eyes on someone, and by doing so, you're able to track them and know your weakness. And Deku theorizes that because Tomura can actually see the vestiges, that a single instance of the DNA inside of him belonging to the other users of One For All and the vestiges could potentially trick Surge and act as decoys, which is why he's using Gran Torino's cape, which was also used as a decoy in the Lady Nagant fight, to potentially trick Tomura. And this makes a fair amount of sense within the world of My Hero Academia and One For All, because One For All doesn't just transfer the power, it transfers as well as quirks and the quirk factors from one individual to another. And what is a quirk and the quirk factor? A part of the DNA of that individual that was born with that quirk. And this kind of explains something that I thought about during the war for why One For All shone brighter than the other individuals that Tomura had Surge active on. And it's because he had multiple different individuals in just one selective area, which means that it would shine brighter because there's more areas to actually look and search at. And because all of this came together perfectly and near flawlessly, it takes Tomura off guard, and Deku was able to land a critical strike on Tomura's chest. And that we know for a fact that this strike would be very devastating, because we get to see the finger armor that we saw during his first evolution of the quirk Singularity try and enclose on him to protect him in this moment, but Deku was able to do it just in time and send a little blood inside of him, as well as finally be able to send Gear Shift inside of Tomura in a very impactful panel. But with that panel, we unfortunately most likely say goodbye to one of the vestiges inside of One For All, as the implication in this moment, as the meteor falling down towards the circular lead or potentially planet-like idea inside of Tomura, you have Kudo saying, "Oh nah, it's fine, I'm a ghost, it's fine. But before I go, let me just break into this core that is Tomura Shigaraki." And as we see Kudo smash into it as it appears to disappear, potentially confirming that he is no longer a part of the world of One For All or even All For One, we see that it does have an effect on Tomura in this moment, but even more importantly, it has an effect on Deku, and that it does something that was very much unexpected. Because the final few pages of this chapter, and even the final page of the chapter where Deku is talking to In, and Ian is telling him that what is happening is working and that he should continue smashing into Tomura Shigaraki in this moment, both Tomura and Deku come to a realization that they are seeing the vestiges or the images, or more specifically, the memories of one another. Really showing that that ball of lead is more of a representation of like who Tomura is, his mental state, and not necessarily just a literal, physical, biological aspect. It's most likely akin to the mind, which we cannot see within our brains. And what they both see are the images of Dabi and Toga and their first interactions and introductions to Tomura Shigaraki. But also they get to see Deku going up against Shoto, where he tells him that he wants to be a hero and that it's his power. And we even get to see Deku react to the first time, most likely, that Tomura meets Spinner. And how the first user, Yoichi, says that their memories are blending together as the chapter comes to its end. And this is something very important and unexpected, and I kind of like what Horikoshi is doing with this. Because this is really pretty much giving Deku the reasoning and the ability to be able to save Tomura. Because what Tomura has been explaining throughout this entire series is that the heroes can never understand what's going on with the villains, and that Deku will never be understand what it means for Tomura to be what he is. But in this moment, Deku will be able to understand who Tomura is because he'll be able to see the memories. He'll be able to see how much Tomura cared for the League of Villains. He'll get to see how much conviction Tomura has to be a villain, but most importantly, he'll most likely be able to see the little Tenko, the past that actually created who Tomura is, and by doing so will be the linchpin for Deku being able to connect and relate to Tomura in a way that no one else can, and allowing Deku to be the only character capable of understanding Tomura and eventually leading to him potentially saving both Tomura and Tenko. And I just love how it's being done by Deku giving up his power to try and save Tomura in this moment. And it's just something that is very unique and unexpected, and I like to see where it goes, because the implication being that we're going to see even more quirks crash into that lead sphere, and Deku is going to learn more and more about Tomura's past. But yeah, that's pretty much the chapter, and let me just say that I enjoyed, if not loved, this chapter. I love the implications of the final part of the chapter, emphasizing how Deku is going to learn more about Tomura, and that's going to be how he's eventually potentially going to save Tomura, as well as just getting to see more of what makes Deku a very unique protagonist when it comes to his fighting style and how he thinks more creatively and more strategically due to the fact that it's established that he studied quirks all his life, so he has a mindset meant to be able to handle One For All to the greatest, and just overall good paneling and art from Horikoshi in this chapter. Hey guys, back again! If you guessed that overlay involved them overlaying their memories, congratulations! You get a free pizza. You know, you're just gonna have to go and buy it yourself, but hey, you got a free pizza. Cool. But yeah, that's all I really have to say. Really enjoyed this chapter, and let me ask you this. What do you think of the chapter? Do you like it? Do you dislike it? And do you enjoy how Horikoshi is tying in Tomura and Deku's story through memories? And do you think, or do you like how Deku's potentially going to be saving Tomura by learning about him by giving up parts of One For All and unleashing the hidden memories inside of Tomura? Leave your thoughts down below, and don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel for more content like this. Do all that cool jazz, and hopefully I'll be able to catch you in my next video. Goodbye!